Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. The Rays start off the final series of the first half with a win. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there at 12:37 on this Saturday morning on this Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show. As always, number to call 877-566-1020. You can tweet us at WHBC Official. We are live, as I said, from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. Some good things to discuss. A 7-1 win for the Tampa Bay Rays tonight over the Toronto Blue Jays. Their winning ways at home continue. They are now 20-2 in their last 22 home games. So I know with the 10-game road losing streak that the Rays were able to snap last weekend, things were not going so good. Looked like there was some issues with the team, and every time they return to the friendly confines of Tropicana Field, it seems as if all those worries seem to fade away. Just looking at the box score, typically not a winning formula for the Rays. They strike out 16 times. They go 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position, and usually when those things happen, we're talking about a pretty tough loss. But instead, it was a 7-1 win. Looking at the box score, I am quite puzzled at how the Rays were able to scratch across 7 runs. And if I was not among the 8,500 at Tropicana Field tonight, I'm not sure I would have believed it, but I was there. I did witness it with my own eyes, and I can tell you it's true. Taylor Walls is really having a nice stretch since coming up the injured list with the sore wrist. He goes 2 for 4 tonight with a couple of doubles and another couple of runs knocked in. I know he had 2 RBI singles in one of the doubleheader games against Cleveland on Wednesday, so a really good stretch for him continues. Joey Wendell gets a hit and a big night for him. Not as much on the field, but in the hour or so that followed the game when it was announced by Major League Baseball that he will be an American League reserve for the All-Star game. So the Rays, I suppose, will be having 2 All-Stars this year. I'm not sure if that's considered an official All-Star, appearance or whatever. But if he gets in the game, if he's on the roster, to me, in my heart, Joey Wendell is an All-Star. So congratulations, certainly, to Joey. He's been a fan favorite, not just of mine, but many other Rays fans since he came over in 2018. And he will be joining Mike Zunino in Colorado, presumably, for the All-Star festivities starting next week. But before we get there, obviously, the win tonight and also 2 more games over the weekend against this Toronto Blue Jays club. The Rays now control the season series 7-4, and it's amazing. By weekend's end, 13 of the 19 games this season against the Toronto Blue Jays will have been played. There's just 6 games between the two clubs in the second half of the season. So a Blue Jays team that is playing extremely hot right now, and I would imagine is most likely poised for a pretty good second half. I imagine that they'll at least they'll be over 500 in the second leg of the season, but we'll just have to wait and see. So probably a good team to get out of the way now before maybe they find their groove. If Vladimir Guerrero Jr. kicks his MVP type year into second gear, and this lineup really is terrific, which leads me, of course, to the main point, I suppose, on how this win was possible, that you hold this lineup to only one run. I know they had a lot of difficulties holding this team down last weekend in Buffalo. They score 6 in game 1, they score 11 runs in game 1, 6 runs in game 2, and then when the win on last Sunday, the Rays held them to just 1 run. So the last 2 games against the Blue Jays, they've only scored 1 run. So maybe the team has found some sort of winning formula, and in a way, I guess, getting a monkey off their back in getting some runs off Alek Manoah, a guy who went 7-inning shutout against the Rays his last time, and tonight gives up 3 runs and can't get out of the 4th inning. Goes just 3 2/3 on 88 pitches. So not something that the Rays are able to accomplish very often. It's something we talk about as something maybe they should look to do. If you can get to the starting pitcher in a series, particularly in the first game, and dig deep into their bullpen, not only does that improve obviously your chances in winning that night's game, but it also opens up all kinds of fascinating possibilities for the rest of the series as well, if you can get them kind of on their heels as far as the use of the pitchers and things like that. So not just with the win tonight, but I think in how they did it also did themselves a favor for the next couple of days. And a team right now at 52-36, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. They have won 5 in a row. They are just 2.5 games back of first. That's obviously the Red Sox. So I think going into the All-Star break, everything around this team should be good vibes, all that stuff. Certainly a good win. Lots more to discuss. We're going to take a short break here. When we return, obviously go deep into tonight's loss as we always do, and then at the end of the program, we will preview Saturday and Sunday's contest and get you prepared for everything you need to know for this final series of the first half. Number to call the show, and we will certainly be taking your calls all night long, 877-566-1020. We have a line open, and as always, would love to hear from you. If you would like to share your thoughts with us on Twitter, you can tweet us at WHBC Official as well. So without further ado, we're taking a short break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
WHBC. And at 12:44 on this Saturday morning, we are back on this Rays post-game edition of the William Haynes Show. Number to call, 877-566-1020 to talk Rays, also at WHBC Official on Twitter. But without further ado, in 3 hours and 31 minutes, and in front of a paid attendance, myself included, of 8,551, it was the Tampa Bay Rays 7-1 over the Toronto Blue Jays. The Rays improved to 52-36 on the season, and they are now 27-16 at home. They also are 20-2 in their last 22 home games, so much better starting at home than they were to begin the season, of course. And they are now 16 games above 500, which I know is not a season high watermark. I believe the best they were was, I want to say, about 21 games, 22 games maybe, but much better than they were during that losing streak when they lost 7 in a row, and they had lost 10 total in a row on the road, all that stuff. And it looks like hopefully we'll be putting those kind of things behind us heading into the second half of the season. They dropped the Blue Jays to 44-41. They are 25-21 on the road. And just looking at the Blue Jays standings, because they've been flip-flopping, and at least for right now, they are tied with the Yankees for third place in the AL East, and the Rays, who have won 5 in a row, are just 2.5 back of first. That's the Red Sox at 55-34. They won tonight, and to snap a little bit of a losing streak that they were on as they continue a West Coast road trip. They have actually returned, and they had a win 11-5 over the Phillies tonight after a pretty successful road trip that they were on. For the victorious Rays, it was 7 runs on 8 hits, no errors defensively, and they played a squeaky clean game defensively. The only thing maybe you'd say against them in that regard would be a passed ball for Zunino. Extremely rare for him as well on the season. They don't have the tally, but take my word for it, not very many pass balls for Zunino this year. And then for the Blue Jays offense, who has been extremely hot as of late, we were firsthand witnesses of that last weekend. Just 1 run on 5 hits and an error defensively for them. And it was very familiar to that series when the Blue Jays were in the drop in late April. Just a hard ground ball that ate up the third baseman, Kevin Biggio, and allowed Mike Zunino to reach base for the second time of the game. It didn't count as a hit, but he reached base in 3 of the 4 times he came up to the plate, and had a hit by pitch and a single mixed in there as well. So not a bad game for the All-Star, Mike Zunino, and he'll be joined, as we said, by Joey Wendell in Colorado next week. And the pitcher's decisions getting the win, it was reliever Andrew Kittredge. He is now 6-1 on the season. It seems like we're far removed for that stretch where it seemed like he had 4 or 5 of those wins in about a week stretch, or a week and a half stretch maybe it felt like. As far as, I guess, when he's coming in games, he's typically, if the starter has a bit of a short stint, he's typically the first guy to come out of the pen if the game is still somewhere within reason. And because of that, he's been able to earn a lot of wins. Shane McClanahan, who just went 4, not eligible for the victory. The Rays were leading at the time. So Kittredge pitches a couple of perfect innings and gets himself his 6th win of the season, striking out 2 in the process. And getting the loss, and the Rays, I think, have to feel pretty good about what they did to Alek Manoah this time around. He is now 2-1 on the season. Gave up 2 earned runs, 3 total, over his 3 2/3 innings of work. Struck out 9 and walked 3. We'll talk about this when we're discussing the offense, but Alek Manoah, he got 11 outs. 9 of them were via the strikeout. So the Rays able to get some runs across, but when they were making outs, they were very ugly. But with that being said, with the 3 walks, it allowed them to load the bases in back-to-back innings, which is not something we see this team do very much. And maybe that's where some of the woes with runners in scoring position came from. They had the bases juiced in both the 3rd and the 4th inning, and between those 2 came away with 3 runs. So there was some falters with runners in scoring position, but, let's say bases loaded with nobody outs, and with 2 outs, you get a 2 RBI single. I mean, you still get the runs. Just the guys in front of them maybe not coming through, and that was certainly the case tonight. The starting lineup for Kevin Cash and his Tampa Bay Rays, defense first, in the outfield from left to right, it was Austin Meadows in left, it was Kevin Kiermaier in center, Brett Phillips in right, and then in the infield from third to first, it was Wander Franco at third, Taylor Walls at shortstop, Joey Wendell, the All-Star, at second base, G-Man Choi at first, Mike Zunino did the catching, and the DH was Brandon Lau against the righty Manoah. They shake things up a little bit. They still have the lefties at the top, as the first really 7 hitters in the lineup were either lefty or switch, and 8 of the 9 total were either left-handed or switch hitters, so they were really putting the pressure on Manoah as far as that goes. The only true right-hander in the lineup tonight was Mike Zunino, who hit 8th, and leading to the batting order, it was Lau, Choi, Franco, Meadows, Wendell, Kiermaier, Walls, Zunino, Phillips. Kiermaier moving up to the 6th spot, which is, considering where he's been hitting lately, that's pretty high in the order for him. Joey Wendell in the 5th spot as well. That's a pretty good middle of the order, considering how those guys have been going. Wander Franco, this is maybe nitpicking. I prefer him at the 2 spot. I think it seems like, and maybe it's just a coincidence, that they generate some more offense that way than when he's in the 3 spot. But neither here nor there. Didn't bang him up too much tonight, and Franco was still coming up in big opportunities. By the way, let me say about Franco, his 8-game hitting streak has come to a close, and I guess we'll talk about him more when we're in this spot in the order. But he's hitting .211 on the season, but an 8-game hitting streak. He's reached base, I want to say, in all but 3 of the now, I have here 14 games that he's played, so 11 of the 14 he's reached base, which is very, very impressive. The strikeouts more than the walks. He's not been looking great as of late. But post All-Star break, we'll continue to get a good look at him. Look, if he has more games like he did tonight, I would not be surprised if he's back to Durham, because it looks like at this point maybe he's a little bit behind of things after a really hot start. We've seen that already this year. A couple of top prospects, Kalanick, the Mariners had to be sent down after about 100 at-bats. So these things do happen. It's not panic mode for Franco, but I just wanted to throw that out there. And an 8-game hitting streak for a guy within his first, 2-3 weeks in the big leagues, I think that's impressive. And with a .211 average, that's not going to be discussed much, because there was a lot of 1-for-4s or 1-for-5s mixed in there as well. But still not a difficult thing to do. And to his credit, has also looked very good defensively as well. So has done himself a big favor in that regard. Moving now 1 through 9 in the lineup quickly to discuss everyone's performance, and we discussed both their performance at the plate and how they did defensively, if it applies, and the Rays did have some pretty good defense going tonight. In the leadoff spot in the DH was Brandon Lau. I like, having him DH tonight. I guess it worked out. Randy Arozarena getting a night off against a right-hander, I suppose you could understand, although we're only 2 games away from the All-Star break. It could be a matchups thing, I'm not sure. With the 7 runs, certainly you would say they did not miss Arozarena's presence in the lineup. Either Randy or Meadows tends to be the DH, so with one of those guys out of the order, that opens that up for some more maneuverability, and so that opens up not just Franco and Walls to be on the same infield, but Wendell to play his most traditional position, which is second base, and I think he's only been there about 2 or 3 times this year, but was extremely slick at second base, as he is anywhere across the infield. But back to Lau in the DH, so without being on defense, not able to contribute much offensively, 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, but does mix in a walk in there as well, an average that's down to 203, an on-base of 312. His first 2 at-bats did look pretty bad, righty on left against Alek Manoah. Looking at Lau's last time against Manoah, just to see if there was some improvement there in that game where, Manoah had a no-hitter going into the 6th inning, so obviously could not have done that well. He went against Manoah 0 for 3 and then hit an RBI double in the 8th against one of Toronto's relievers. So the second time against Manoah, not much better. 2 strikeouts to start off. And about Manoah, as I said, 9 of the 11 outs collected for Alek was via the strikeout, so was making some guys look silly, not anyone in particular, but the slider was very, very good. Both sides, a ton of foul balls. It just seemed like not a lot of squaring up of the baseball when hits weren't being made, which I guess you could say any night. but a ton of foul balls, and that led to quite a few 0-2 counts. And then you get 2 strikes against these race hitters with that slider, you're going to punch a lot of people out, and that's what Manoah did, even in a short stint. Amazing, he was able to get to 9 punch outs. But did walk against Manoah his 3rd time, which is good to show that improvement. And there was quite a bit of 0-2 to walks. I think Choi had one as well. I want to say Meadows had one. So some good at bats all around most of the night. They didn't start off so well, but again, loading the bases in the 3rd and the 4th, and scoring 4 runs after that sequence as well, you would say is very impressive. So for Lau, strikeouts were high. I know he hit that monster home run in the doubleheader on Wednesday. He's got 18 on the season. There was an article in the Times earlier this week about him coming out and admitting this is his worst season of his baseball life. But you look at the numbers, not terrible. Really, if he had hit better, he's not even hitting his weight against left-handers. Which I'm not sure how much he weighs, but he's hitting just over 100 against left-handed pitching, which needs to be much better if he wants to have a better season. But against righties is fine. Power numbers are good. Is a good defensive second baseman as well. Can play the outfield. So not anything really against Brandon Lau personally, and hopefully he'll pick it up in the second half. And the 2 spot, it's G-Man Choi. Choi tonight 1 for 3 with 3 knocked in, a walk, and no strikeouts. 267 batting on the year, a 394 on base. So I think is now leading the team probably in that category, within the threshold of so many plate appearances, as Yandy Diaz has sacrificed his 400 on base percentage for some more hits and more home runs and such, which as I've talked about is a good thing. And so it was against the righty Manoah, the 2 main guys, Yandy and Arozarena, on the bench. So that in part opens it up for Choi. 1 for 3. He started the game off with a ground out in the 1st inning, had a walk, and ended up did not come across the score, but was part of that 3rd inning where they loaded the bases. Then in the 4th, he comes to the plate with the bases loaded and gets hit by a pitch. It was on his left knee. Thankfully, not on the right knee, which he had arthroscopic knee surgery on following spring training. So, that's the last place you want to get hit by a pitch. They made a pitching change after that, and so it looked like Choi was headed to the dugout and was going to come out of the game. I guess they were just doing further examinations, and he ended up staying in the game, which would lead you to believe that maybe he's fine, but the track record specifically this season, even if he's in the game, doesn't mean he's 100% or really even healthy for that matter. I think having the 4 or 5 days off next week probably would go a long way in that. And I think with the luxury of talent among the infield, they could give him an injured list stint. They could just sit him down for a couple days after the All-Star break, because they've got a lot of guys in that infield that need time. And hopefully Choi is not hurt. I don't want to throw that out there if he's not, but did have a good night at the plate, and at first base, no issues collecting the throws over there at the bag. And then after that, hit by pitch with the bases loaded in the 4th, which does count as an RBI. In the 6th, he came up with men at 2nd and 3rd and 1 out, and he hits an RBI single, which was great to see. Looking at that at bat there in the 6th, that would have been against the reliever, the righty, Anthony Castro, who had righty on lefty. Started off 2-0, gets himself into a hitter's count, and then maybe swings at a pitch that was on the corner, but just a fastball middle in, and he hits it into center to knock in a couple of runs and extend the Rays' advantage from 3-1 to 5-1, so put the game further out of the Blue Jays' reach, and then lined out to right field, making some pretty good contact there in his final at-bat to start the 8th. Now, Wander Franco in the 3 spot tonight, snapping an 8-game hitting streak. He goes 0 for 5, no walks, and 4 strikeouts. So striking out 4 out of the 5 times he comes to the plate. His average is now down to 211. He's getting on base about 275, so not terrible in that regard. But anytime on base under 300 is not great, I will say that. getting on base just about 27% of the time. Was 0 for 2, not just with runners scoring position, but 0 for 2 with the bases loaded as he came up as part of that third and fourth inning sequence, which we've talked so much about. That really was, at least in my eyes, kind of the game winner. I want to dissect all of his at-bats because I think the Wander thing is still worth discussion and all that. So strikeout swinging in the first, that was obviously against the starter Alek Manoah. Came up with 2 outs, bases empty. Takes a strike, a fastball kind of down the middle. So with the righty pitcher, he would have been in the lefty batter's box. Then takes a fastball up and away. Swings through that same fastball that he took for strike 1. So then he's now 1-2. Takes a couple of good pitches with 2 strikes, which is impressive. Gets himself in an even count, or actually really at a full count, at 3-2. And chases a slider down and in. That was probably on the border. This goes not just with Franco, but the other guys with the swinging strikeouts specifically. Vic Carapazza, the home plate umpire, I'm sure most of you are familiar with his name, and anytime you are familiar with an umpire's name, typically not a good thing. At least to me, that usually means that he's notorious for making some inaccurate calls. And the strike zone was wide and open for business tonight, and both pitching staffs really were able to take advantage of it. I thought Shane McClanahan in particular was getting the advantage of it. I mean, he only goes 4 innings and throws about 90 pitches, but if not for Vic Carapazza, his night could have been shorter because there were some at-bats that it seemed like he was bailed out by some borderline strike calls. And so the point of bringing that up is if you've got a home plate umpire that's calling maybe a wider than average strike zone, you're going to have guys swinging at pitches that maybe they know they shouldn't or that they typically don't, but they know just because of circumstance they have to. So a slider down and in to a lefty, I mean, typically you don't really ever want your guy swinging at that pitch unless your name is Austin Meadows, because it seems like down and in is his pitch in particular. Thankfully, he's been being able to hit on some other pitches, but he'll be next in the order. So chases a pitch there on a full count. Then in his next at-bat, strikes out looking with the bases loaded. And thankfully, Meadows was able to come up after him because that was just bases loaded with 1 out. That was the second out of the inning against Manoah. The second time, again, as in the first at-bat, takes strike 1, a fastball, kind of on the inner third there. Then takes a couple of pitches, a couple of fastballs. So he goes basically up to the plate, I guess, looking to take pitches. And that particular at-bat, bases loaded, 1 out. I suppose I understand that. You want to look for your pitch. Then swings and misses at a slider down and in, inside for strike 2. And then takes a fastball in the inner third for strike 3. So that's tough. I mean, he was working him inside 4 out of the 5 pitches, and you take a strike in the inner third? I don't understand that. I mean, if it was on the outside, that would be Manoah kind of working you over there, but he was working you inside as he kind of did in the first at-bat, and Franco takes that pitch looking there. Then in the 4th inning, not as much to say. They brought in a different pitcher just to face Franco because it was bases loaded with 2 outs in the 4th. Manoah comes out. Saucedo comes in. As far as earned run average, ERA is concerned, maybe one of their best relievers. I don't think the Rays have seen him a ton. And he's a lefty, so you move Franco to his better side of the plate, which is the right side. And with the bases loaded, myself included, I think a lot of us were thinking maybe something big to come. Instead, gets a slider, or actually it was really kind of a fastball down and away from him as a righty there, and just grounds out and a fielder's choice. They were just able to get the force at second base, and in that, obviously, you need to get it through the infield with 2 outs there, and was not able to do so. I mean, that was a pitch that he homered off of in Buffalo just last weekend, so a pitch from the righty batter's box down and away he thinks he can get. Did not make particularly good contact, but we've seen the hitting streak stay alive, particularly on Wednesday with just a chopper that was difficult to field. So putting the ball in play in that situation, I give him more credit for it than not. And, again, this needs to be said. A Hall of Fame hitter gets about 3 hits out of every 10 at-bats. So, you're not going to come through every time. But to go 0 for 2 with the bases loaded, a bit concerning. I would argue maybe the four going 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts would be more alarming, because throughout his minor league career has not been a strikeout guy really at any point. Then in the 6th inning, I guess this is a good sign that they bring in a pitcher to face Franco. They take the righty Castro and put in the righty Barnes to face Franco there. It was with a runner at first and 1 out. It was after Choi had hit the 2 RBI single, so they were just trying to get that 2-run inning to a close, and the Jays were down 5-1 at that point, so not incredibly high leverage of a spot. So against a righty, he moves to the left-hander's batter's box, takes a fastball high and away for ball 1, then takes a fastball on the outer third of the plate for strike 1, chases that pitch, just swings through it for strike 2. So then all of a sudden he's down 1 ball, 2 strikes. Takes a pitch down and in. That was an easy take, 2 balls, 2 strikes, and then swings through a fastball in the outer third again. So was just struggling to go get that pitch. We've seen him, maybe velocity is not the issue, but we've seen him struggle against velocity. Fastballs 95 plus, just kind of swinging through them. So that leads you to believe potentially a timing issue. I would imagine also for a switch hitter, that might take some getting used to as well against a level of pitching that you've never seen before really in your entire life. So it's going to be a process for sure. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a guy that we talked about, that was struggling to come into his own. I believe played his rookie year at, I want to say 19 years old or 20, something like that, and hit only 15 home runs that year, the entire season. And Vladdy this year, I think, has got almost 30 home runs heading into the All-Star break. So sometimes these top prospects, just because they're struggling, I mean, Franco in particular, he's 20 years old, turned 20 in March. So, I mean, he still has a lot of growing to do as a baseball player, as a person, all that stuff. So, and we knew this was going to happen. And for these top prospects in particular, they go their entire life, whether, they're an American player in high school or they're, an international player. I mean, he's been playing baseball in the Dominican since, I imagine he was a little kid. His father, his brothers, I think he had an uncle, all played minor league baseball. So he's been around this game his whole life and really has been successful at the game his whole life, including in the minor league level, for which his minor league career he's hitting over 300 with more walks than strikeouts. I mean, was player of the year, I think, at multiple different levels. So you get to this point where you're hitting 211, you've got more strikeouts than walks in a big way, and you're striking out in these frustrating at bats. This is an adjustment period for him. He's going to have to find a way to work through it if it is indeed Franco remaining with the big league club, which I assume will be the case. So give him time. He's going to take his lumps, but I'm really confident he'll be able to come out on the other side. The final at-bat of the game, and the only reason he was able to get a fifth at-bat was because of some guys reaching base in that 7th inning where they scored a couple of runs. And I talked about this, I think, Wednesday, that I'd actually gone back and looked at the broadcast, and you could hear my Wander Franco chants coming from 204. Tonight I was in 149, I was in the outfield, and the Franco chants from me and my buddy, and we even got some people out there in the stands joining us. I haven't checked yet, but I imagine you probably could have heard us from the TV or the radio or wherever you're listening. So I was really excited that he could get a fifth at-bat to try and extend that 8-game hitting streak, because for a guy really, I mean, with 211 and all those things with the average, has been struggling really from a number standpoint. But really that hitting streak, I think, was his saving grace, that he could at least have some kind of consistency. So I was rooting for that to continue. And this is a tough look against Adam Simber, which, he's a sidearmer and is incredibly, a tough pitcher to read, but was getting all fastballs at about 86, 87 and strikes out for the 4th time of the night. Fouls off. So against the righty Simber, he would have been in the lefty box. Fouls a fastball up and in for strike 1. Swings through that pitch for strike 2, so he's down 0-2. Takes a couple of pitches up and in. some good takes there with 2 strikes, as we saw in the first at-bat, so there's a positive. And then just a fastball down and away. But from that kind of sidearm submarine guy, I mean, those fastballs are coming in at the weirdest possible angles. Simber is a tough guy to face, and they acquired him, did the Blue Jays, in a trade for Miami, I think last week. So as they look to shore up probably the shoddiest part of their team, which is the bullpen. And Simber with, I think, another scoreless inning against the Rays in a 1-week period. So maybe a guy that will be effective for Toronto in the second half. And that was Franco's final at-bat of the night. So there is tonight's edition of Wander Watch as he goes 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts in the cleanup spot. And he's been hitting there and has been quite consistent. And I believe is at the top of the team ranks in runs batted in. Yes, I'm talking about Austin Meadows. Tonight he goes 1 for 3 with 2 knocked in. Also works 2 walks and a strikeout. An average that's up to 243. I think with 16, 17 home runs, he should probably be some sort of all-star consideration since May 1st, I believe, is within the top 5, if not top 3 maybe, in the American League with runs batted in. And throughout those winning streaks and nice stretches that the team has been on, Austin Meadows is pretty much always a big part of that. And really had a great night. Worked a leadoff walk in the second, got the second on a pass ball, and Manoah strikes out the next 3 batters that he faced, and he was punching out a bunch of people, as we've said. Then with the bases loaded in 2 outs in a 1-0 deficit, hit a 2 RBI single. It was, I believe, and I'll check there, in the 3rd inning, a pitch that was kind of middle in on the hands, verifying if that was the case. Yeah, it was up and in, actually, and a pitch that's pretty much always a chase pitch on the first pitch of the at-bat. And if it's not a swing and miss, it's a pop-up. Instead, just kind of a bloop flare that gets past, I guess, over the head of the second baseman, Simeon, and into shallow right field. And with runners at first and second, was able to score a couple of runs. Is that right? It was with the bases loaded, actually. I don't know why ESPN says that. It was with the bases loaded, so it scored 2 runs, and that was his most of his production on the night. Worked another leadoff walk in the 5th, and that was when he went from 0-2 to a walk, and for Meadows, not too many 2-strike takes, and especially on 0-2 to take 4 straight balls. I'm sure with some fouls mixed in. That was good to see. So his batting eye, I think, is in a good place, and he's reaching and getting hits on pitches he usually doesn't. So as I always say, that's when we know Austin Meadows is at his best, and that's awesome to see. And then flew out to center for his final time. But a 2 RBI single coming through, bases loaded, 2 outs, and a couple of walks. I love that for an Austin Meadows game, that's for sure. And drove in the winning runs there in the 3rd inning with the team in a 1-0 hole, and gave Shane McClanahan a lead to work with in his 4th and final inning. So all good stuff, certainly, right there. Coming up clutch as he has really most of the season. He was relieved in the 9th inning defensively by Vidal Brujan. No issue or anything, just a defensive sub. And by the way, this I guess would be a good opportunity to discuss with the injuries we talked about. Manuel Margot with the left hamstring strain, I believe it was called. He's going to spend 2 to 3 weeks on the IL. And so in his stead, it was... I want to say they brought up Fleming basically in his place coming off the IL. So one goes on the IL, another comes off, and then Brujan, who was the 27th, meaning the extra man on the doubleheader on Wednesday, played well, and they said he was going to stay. We thought, okay, Brasso gets sent down, Brujan up. Well, it wasn't that simple. Brasso is actually going to go on the injured list with what was, I believe, described as, I'm trying to find it here, as an oblique issue, I want to say, but I want to make sure that I've got my information right. So, not something that we could have suspected really from Brasso, I guess, but sometimes you just never know with those things. Brasso placed on the IL due to a right oblique strain. They move it retroactive to Thursday, so he's eligible to return July 18th, missing only 5 games. So I don't know if they're going to bring Brasso up and then send Brujan back down. But if Brujan's playing good, is Brasso going to be outrighted to AAA? That'll be something that we'll have to watch post All-Star break. A couple of other injury updates. Ryan Thompson, who's on the IL with a shoulder issue, still feels an issue in the shoulder, will be shut down for another 2 or 3 days and then start throwing again. So that's not a great sign, I would imagine. I mean, we're talking, we may not see him in the month of July, but that would probably, I mean, that would be kind of a negative outlook. But that would be my guess, would either be late July, early August. So joining the team maybe just before the likes of Anderson and such. And then with the other news with the pitchers, Chris Archer with the forearm and Oliver Drake with the flexor tendon threw on Wednesday in Port Charlotte and did fine, and will do so again in a few days. We've been hearing about them throwing at the Trop and at Port Charlotte. Archer is going to take some more time because he's a starter, and he could really be an electric addition to this team late in the second half. He's kind of a guy that's been an afterthought and has been kind of forgotten about. He made one start this season. And Drake, who missed all of last year with, I believe, Tommy John, and was a crucial part of the 19 bullpen. I mean, has a nasty splitter and is a righty that's good against righties and lefties. So a true weapon out of the pen. And the Drake, as he was called, I look forward to having him back pitching in a Rays uniform. And the final point that I wanted to make with the injuries, I mean, the Rays have had pitching injuries galore, and really for the first time dealing with some position player injuries. They're going to be getting their arms back, but they've got some guys going down with Manny Margot and Mike Brasso. Margot hurts because I think in some ways he's been one of the biggest contributors this year, maybe next to a Meadows per se. And Brasso, as we know, has been up and down, and I believe was sent down in Franco's place, although I'm not sure that was I know the night it happened. The trivia question, who was sent down in Franco's favor? I want to say it was Brasso. I think it was, actually. And so, I mean, it's not like Meadows and Randy maybe on the IL, because that would be a pretty big blow. But to still have some contributors go down, it's just part of a season that they're going to have to deal with. But I think in the silver lining, it's opened some doors for some youngsters, some prospects to play. Taylor Walls, which that was because of a trade of Adames, but for Franco, and also for Vidal Brujan. So some guys that maybe we wouldn't have seen until later in the season have gotten to play earlier because of some circumstance going on, and I think ultimately that's a good thing. And Brujan came and played fine in left. He's now played in left and right and at second base so far in 3 major league games played, so is already showing off his versatility. Did not get an at-bat, obviously, tonight as a defensive sub in the 9th. In the 5 spot, Joey Wendell, the All-Star, goes 1 for 4 with a run scored, no walks, 3 strikeouts. An average that's down to 275, but I think that's the main thing that propelled him to the All-Star status. Struck out looking in the second due to some questionable Vic Carapazza umpiring. Struck out swinging after Meadows' 2 RBI singles, so I want to say that was first and second maybe. And struck out there on a slider down and in from Manoah. Then struck out looking in the 5th, so was taking some tough strike 3 calls, and I know some of them probably should have been called balls, I understand that. And then hit a leadoff single in the 7th, so still getting in there in the mix with a hit and came across the score. Also added a stolen base, and so far this season he has 6 of them. I feel like he's probably got to be 6 for 12 almost with the stolen bases that has been caught, just as much as he is successful, but been a part of the movement for the Rays doing the base running. They haven't done a ton lately. Tonight, I think, was the first stolen base success that they might have had in quite a while. At least it feels that way. And just talking some more about Wendell's All-Star appearance. I mean, it's huge. And I know a lot of people are familiar with Wendell's worth. I mean, it's a tremendous defender, is very versatile, and is experiencing his best offensive year, really, of his career at 31 years old. 275. He's 7 home runs, which is tied for a career best already. 33 runs knocked in, and an OPS right under 800. And 75 games played. I mean, is doing great. 60 strikeouts and 17 walks. So has been striking out a fair amount, but an on-base percentage of .337, and is good. As I said, hit 7 home runs in 139 games in 2018, and has got 7 home runs in 75 games, so about half as many games with the same home runs. And he hit 33 doubles in 139 games in 18. In 75 games, he's got already 21 doubles in about half his games and many games played. So no matter what you want to slice it, the power numbers are up. They are good. He's on pace for probably a career high in runs batted in as well. And a guy that was up and down. The Rays was a buy low candidate from the A's going into the 18 season. And, has proved his worth. He's been able to stick around after, he hit 318 in 139 games. And, that was certainly his best year of his career, and that's what kept him around the following 2 seasons. Kind of had an injury-riddled season in 19, and in 2020 was a crucial player. 286 and 50 games played, 50 out of the 60 in the regular season. And was a contributor and mostly defensively in the playoff run last year also. So looking back on this run that the Rays have had from 2018, really, you would say through the present, Wendell has been one of the faces of that run and has been there since the beginning. So it's all, I suppose, very symbolic, but with these kind of considerations with the All-Star and whatnot, I guess it all really is symbolic anyway. But Wendell is one of my favorites players really for a while. I'm really happy for him making the All-Star game. It's really great, a guy that's worked hard his whole career, and I'm sure he's really elated to be able to represent his team in the All-Star game as, I guess, as a reserve replacement, etc. But assuming he appears in the game and, Cashy is going to try and get him in there, I think is a really cool thing. And tonight at second base, which is where things really began for him in Tampa Bay, I remember him splitting time at second with Daniel Robertson. That feels like a lifetime ago. Took a couple of hits probably away. One was a legitimate maybe double in the gap that he made a leaping catch to grab. And then another one probably took away an infield single, had to really charge in probably into the kind of the infield dirt there. Or rather from the infield dirt into kind of that grass area, past the mound, between the mound and the infield, that kind of carpeted area, as Dave Wills likes to say. So just to paint the picture, I had to come in quite a bit ways on a weak ground ball and was able to throw a runner out. So very good defensively, as he is always, no matter where you put him, second, third base, shortstop, and added a hit. A couple of rough strikeouts, but such has been the case for Wendell as of late, I would say. But not a bad day overall. Kiermaier, after having a really nice day on the doubleheader on Wednesday, goes 0 for 3 with a run scored, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts, hitting .236. Back to kind of his old self with the weak contact and the strikeouts, but it really could just be one game on, one game off. Sometimes sometimes he's feeling it, sometimes he's not. It as is the way it's been for Kiermaier for quite some time, and worked a walk. A walk in the 7th inning to get on base, so not bad, and was good in center field, made a couple of running grabs, as I saw up close and personal, so that was pretty neat as well. In the 7th spot, Taylor Wallace made a terrific play over there in the hole, grabbing one that was on the edge, really towards the outfield of the infield dirt, and had a couple other nice, conversions of routine plays, and has been dynamic offensively. 2 for 4 with a run scored and 2 knocked in, no walks, a strikeout. It was terrific with 2 RBI singles in a game on Wednesday, and it continues that success. 2 doubles in a game. His 8th and 9th doubles already. I know some guys that have been playing since April that have had that many, and Wallace has been playing, about half that stretch. So, and that includes a stint on the injured list with a sore wrist. I think it wasn't as much an injury as it was just kind of a plaguing, nagging thing. And the reason I say that is because of how hot he's come off the IL from that. It's not like something he was recovering from. It's just kind of like McHugh with the back strain. And of McHugh, he's pitched like 28 innings since the IL stint, allowing just a run over that stretch. So I think Walls and McHugh kind of the same in that regard. Just some rest has done him a lot of good, and has been great defensively from the stretch. and I think is a valuable offensive player. I mean, the last 2 games especially, I've been very impressed with what Wallace has been able to put together. Some clutch at-bats, all that stuff. Started off the 4th inning with 1 out with a double, came across the score, and then hit a 2 RBI double with second and third, and nobody out there in a 2-run 7th, where the Rays were able to kind of further put the game away from 5 to 7-1 over the Blue Jays, of course. In the 8th spot, Zunino, he goes on the night 1 for 3 with 2 runs scored, no walks, a strikeout. He's going to go probably into Colorado under the Mendoza line, which I think is amazing and the most Zunino thing ever. He's got 18 home runs, though, and has been great at the catcher position. Did have a pass ball that was pretty rare. I didn't see really what happened. McClanahan was kind of all over the place, so make of that what you will. And got hit by a pitch 2 of the night, and Manoah was kind of pitching guys inside. It was a weird night as far as that goes. Reached base on an error in the 4th. It was a good hit off the bat. Kind of a hard hit ground ball to the third baseman Biggio that just ate him up over there. Could not grab it and trickles into the outfield. And he's standing on first, and then a leadoff single on the 6th, and struck out with a man on second in the 7th. So not a terrible day for Zunino in the plate, and again, so aimed for him to be an all-star this year. He really deserves that. Him and Wendell both, you would say. And then Maverick, Brett Phillips, in the 9th spot, came off a really good day in the doubleheader, and had a good game here tonight. Goes 2 for 4 with 2 runs scored, no walks, a strikeout, hitting at .205. Started his day off with a double after Zunino's hit by pitch to make it 2nd and 3rd, and where the Rays loaded the bases for the first time that night. Struck out with runners at the corners and 1 out in the 4th, and in the 6th hit a single with a man on first as well to keep things moving, and then flew out in the 7th. So another really good day. 2 for 4, you would always say that for Phillips, is a really good day at the plate. And the lineup as a whole, 16 strikeouts to 5 walks. So a significant amount of both, but the strikeout number is really high. They score 7 runs. Doing that is impressive. And then also 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position. The guys come through. Choi 1 for 1. Meadows 1 for 1. Those was both with the bases loaded. Walls 1 for 2. So that's the 3 that it comes from. And then Zunino, Phillips, Franco all 0 for 2. Lau was 0 for 3 as well. So a rough night for him, and they left a total of 9 men on base. Now, for the pitching staff. Shane McClanahan, the starter, in a no decision, 4 innings, 1 run on 4 hits, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, 91 pitches, so a career high for him there, 58 of the 91 for strikes. I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. Faced 19 men, threw first pitch strike to 10 of the 19, so about 50%, which is well under probably what his target should be, of maybe 65 to 75%, somewhere within there. Did not have control of the fastball, and for McClanahan, just to put it simply, that is the key for him. He needs to be doing that to pitch effectively. That's what set up a dominant outing for him last time. Get ahead, stay ahead. There was not a whole lot of that tonight. It was get behind, stay behind, I guess, with the 3 walks over 4 innings. This and it's all related. It all goes together. So you can't throw the fastball for strikes. You try and get the swing and miss on sliders. They don't bite on it. So then you can't get the fastballs for strikes. You can't get them to chase on the off speed. Then how are you supposed to get guys out? You also have a ton of foul balls. Looking at his numbers, that's amazing. He had 14 called strikes, 10 swinging strikes, 23 foul ball strikes. He threw 91 pitches, 23 were foul balls. So, 25%, 30% of his pitches were fouled off. So, the fastball at 95, 96, 97 was good. Maybe the velo a bit down, you would say, but did not have good control of it at all. With, about 60% what of his pitches for strikes, not very good, for him. And the curveball and changeup, I mean, there was some hits off of those pitches, which I raved last time out, were compliments to the fastball slider combo. So any category you want to look at, he pretty much failed in all of them. But what's good, and he's been great at damage control, 1 run over 4 innings, and maybe a guy that you wanted to go 5 or 6, but with the bullpen being where it is, the 4 innings was just fine. Was really working in and around trouble all night. Had the bases loaded with 2 outs in the first, got Grichuk to ground out, then retired the side in the second, 1, 2, 3. Then in the third, got in some more trouble, a 1-out double, allowed an RBI single to Springer and a walk, and got out of that jam, got Grichuk again, and then in the fourth, had a man at second, I think with 1 or 2 outs, and then struck out a couple of men, including not a pinch hitter. It was McGuire and Simeon. So not a terrible night. 5 strikeouts with the 3 walks. An ERA right now at 4.05. I think is having a good rookie campaign overall. I'm committed to McClanahan now as a starter. I know I was reluctant before, but I've seen growth. Tonight was not a great start, but the control comes and goes, especially with these youngsters that are putting emphasis on being flamethrowers. So these kind of nights are going to happen, but I still think impressive for him, I guess, to limit some of the damage. Then out of the bullpen, kind of a rare sighting, a couple of 2-inning outings, both from Kittredge and Springs. And you want to talk about another key to victory. The Rays finished off allowing just 1 base runner over the last 5 innings. So imagine how difficult that is for the Blue Jays. I mean, put them down in order in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and allowed a 1-out single in the 9th, and then that was it. So after McClanahan left, boom, it was shut down. And the bullpen doing their job, but not even necessarily the A bullpen. Kit, as we said, the guy to come out, the designated guy after a short starter stint, and pitching a couple innings, which he did his last time out, and did it effectively. Perfect. 2 strikeouts, 23 pitches, 15 strikes, an ERA under 1.5, so he continues a great 2021 campaign. Then Springs with 2 perfect innings, and 5 of his 6 outs were strikeouts. 31 pitches, 18 strikes, so those 2 innings took a little while. An ERA under 4. He struck out the side in the 8th. So Springs has had a last couple outings very effective as well. And JP Fire Eyes, not much to say about him. Pounding the strike zone, still 18 pitches, 14 strikes, an ERA under 2.5. And allowed a 1-out single to Grichuk, but shut it down, a strikeout, actually 2 strikeouts in the inning of work to close out a 7-1 Rays win. So overall for the pitching, McClanahan left some to be desired, but still impressive to get through the 4 innings with the 1 run, and then the bullpen was shut down, not allowing more than a base runner over the final 5 innings. So a good team win. The offense came together, the bullpen was great, defense very good as well, and as bad as the runners with scoring position and the strikeout numbers were, this is a quintessential Rays win. And as I said, they're now 7-4 in the season series over Toronto, and with just 6 of the 19 games between these two clubs going in the second half. So it's good we're not going to have to see Toronto too much the rest of the way. With that being said, we're going to take a short break. When we return, we'll preview the Saturday and Sunday contests over the weekend against the Blue Jays. Again, number to call 877-566-1020 to talk Rays. With that being said, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020 or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
WHBC.
And at 1:35 on this Saturday morning, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Just a programming update. We will not be on the air anytime after tomorrow's game. We'll discuss the Saturday and Sunday contests Sunday night, and we'll also, wrap up conversation of the first half of the season, going into the second half, expectations. So a lot to discuss. So that's Sunday, this Sunday night. Make sure to tune in. Call it 10:30 or so. Make sure to follow us at WHBC Official on Twitter so you get the show when it goes live. So we'll have a couple games to discuss. So in the meantime, we'll have to preview them. They're both 1 o'clock starts. Saturday at 1 p.m., it'll be Ross Stripling against Ryan Yarbrough. We previewed Stripling the last time. The reason, and the Rays were not even supposed to face Manoah in this series. The reason they did, their third and final game against Baltimore on Thursday got canceled, presumably because of rain, I assume. I could not find anything. So the rotation kind of moves forward, moves back a spot, whatever you want to say. So this Ross Stripling against Ryan Yarbrough tomorrow afternoon. We'll start with Yarbrough first. The 29-year-old left-hander is 5-3 on the year with a .434 earned run average. I don't have anything as of yet if Yarbrough is going to start outright. With that being said, you would assume that he would start, and maybe they haven't announced anything and I just haven't seen it. But Yarbrough's last time out was against these Toronto Blue Jays. Went 5 innings, allowed just a run on 4 hits. It was a solo home run, I believe, and no walks, 5 strikeouts, 71 pitches thrown. Left a little meat on the bone, if you want to say, but did qualify for the win, and I guess that's really what matters, and was able to, the bullpen and everything was able to hold on. Looking at that, it was the Rays in a 1-0 deficit, and they just decided to go to the pen. Actually, with a 2-1 lead, they decided they want to lock it down against the top of the order the third time through, and they were able to do it with McHugh going 3 scoreless. So that was the meaning behind him not going further. And for Yarbrough, especially as a starter, I guess the key is to not have the order see him a third time through. And if you're doing that, about the furthest you can go is about 5 innings. So I would imagine that's probably what he's in line for. Both guys, McHugh and Rasmussen, would be ready to go. I would assume Castillo, Fairbanks, Fireisen, Kittredge, all the guys out of the pen. Well, maybe not Kittredge or Springs. We have seen guys go back-to-back off of a 2-inning performance. Springs, I would say definitely not. Kittredge, I would say probably not. But Rasmussen and McHugh could get them into the late innings following Yarbrough's outing to get them to the Castillos and the Fairbanks of the world, and that's how I imagine they probably play things. So facing the Blue Jays in back-to-back starts, not easy. We saw McClanahan have to do that tonight, and didn't work out too well. He also faced the Blue Jays 2 other times. May 24th, 3 runs on 3 hits over 6 innings, and then on April 24th, 5 2/3 shutout on 3 hits. So is very familiar with this Blue Jays team and has been pretty good against them this season, which you wouldn't think. Righty and lefty against one of the best lineups maybe in baseball, but Yarbrough is a funny man. It's hard to get a good grip on what makes sense with him as a pitcher. Going against Yarbs tomorrow afternoon, Ross Stripling, the 31-year-old right-hander, 3-4 on the year with a .406 earned run average. His last time out against our Tampa Bay Rays. A run on 2 hits over 5 2/3, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, 97 pitches. Was working in and out of trouble, and was working much more out of trouble than he was, making, having to pay for the trouble he was getting in, if that makes any sense. Just the Rays struggling to really kind of finish him off, deliver that blowout knockout punch. I'm sure that sounds familiar because the Rays have struggled with knocking starting pitchers out of games even when they're getting base runners against them. 5 base runners over about 6 innings, it's not bad, but obviously left a little bit to be desired with the 1 run there. And then in a relief appearance, a very rare kind, went 7-inning shutout on May 24th. So, does have dominant history, I guess, this year against the lineup, and he faced the Rays last year in the World Series. He has got a fastball at about 92 or so, and then kind of a slider, changeup combo mid-80s, but has a curveball he can drop down, but mainly a fastball slider guy with the curve and the change as secondary pitches. Then on Sunday afternoon, it'll be a battle of southpaws between Robbie Ray and Rich Hill, starting with Rich Hill. The 41-year-old left-hander is 6-3 on the season with a .365 earned run average. His last time out against the Cleveland Indians, 3 2/3, a run on 3 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, just 57 pitches thrown. He could have gone further. The Rays wanted to pull him to avoid seeing a guy a second time that he had already given a hit against. And the score was such that they felt confident going to the bullpen. That was that 9-8 walk-off win on Monday night. And they had to kind of piece things together. The rest of the way, that was with Rasmussen and Springs and all those guys. Worked into some trouble. I mean, it was a big inning. He gave up a run. I think he had the bases loaded maybe too. And so they want to make that change in the bottom of the fourth. So could have gone maybe longer, and lately he's been struggling, working into trouble, and is facing the Blue Jays for the first time this season. So that's kind of surprising with all the meetings between these two teams, but such is the way things go, I guess, sometimes. Against him on Sunday afternoon will be Robbie Ray. The 29-year-old left-hander this season is 6-4 with a .336 earned run average. You would say because limiting the walks, which the walks is what he's known for, maybe having a career year. His last time out was against our Tampa Bay Rays, 7 innings, allowing 2 runs on 5 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, 104 pitches thrown, which is a few pitches short of his season high. This season, 23 walks, 119 strikeouts, and as we said, known for the walk totals being too high. So now that he's been able to weed that out, I mean, it's turned out to be quite a terrific pitcher, and he throws fastballs at about 95, 96, and has got a changeup at low 90s, a slider at high 80s that he can throw, and that seems to be it for him. Mainly a fastball guy with kind of the slider off of it as a secondary pitch, if you will, and the changeup he'll mix in occasionally, just kind of a straight drop as opposed to the sweeping slider. But a fastball that the Rays had trouble with last time. Again, 2 runs over 7 innings. Talk about struggling to deliver a knockout punch. So the Rays miss Hyunjin and Ryu this series, but the Jays have a pretty sturdy rotation, especially with Manoah. I'll tell you that, between him, Ray, Stripling, and then Ryu. So really the bullpen, I think, holding this team down more than anything. And with the addition of Simber and likely some others, this Jays team, I think, as we've said, could be poised for a pretty good second half. But it'll be up to the Rays to continue their success over Toronto on Saturday and Sunday to finish off the first half of this 2021 season. So, as we said, not on the air tomorrow, or really tonight, as we're almost at 2 a.m. on the Saturday morning. So it's Saturday, it's no longer Friday, but we'll be on Sunday night to discuss the weekend games, end our discussion of the first half of the year, talk about the second half, all that good stuff, all-star game stuff, many things to discuss. Again, make sure you're following us on Twitter at WHBC Official. Also follow us on the show page on Spreaker.com where you're listening to the program. Looking forward to doing some more shows the rest of the year, closing out the first half of the season. Hope the Rays can do it strong. Show Sunday night. As always, we'll talk to you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.
W